Yes. Welcome, everyone. It's Cannabis News. I'm your host, Joe Klare. It's December 27th, 2019. The show, as always, is presented by the Marijuana Times. Find us at marijuanatimes.org. A lot of great stories on there from a lot of great writers, social media links, and more. marijuanatimes.org for all of your cannabis community and industry news and more. You can click the video tab there, of course, to find this show. Today, we're talking about Trump and what he thinks about recently passed protections for medical marijuana businesses. Spoiler alert, apparently not much. Also, we'll talk about the governor of Rhode Island and her plan for the budget shortfall that the state is facing, and a new ad campaign in a county in Colorado illuminates certain things. We'll talk about sometimes I just do stories. Well, they're cannabis related, obviously, and they're news related, but I also do them to point out other things and to illuminate other things. That's what I will be doing a little bit later, so that's something to look forward to for all of you out there. First, before we get to all of that, Cannabis News is brought to you by Natureside, nature-side.com, and their organic, all-natural pesticides grow safe and poison-free with Natureside. Don't use harmful chemicals or banned pesticides or any yucky stuff. Use non-yucky Natureside. There you go. People at Natureside watching, you can use that as well, free of charge. New tagline: non-yucky Natureside. I'm brimming with the ad and marketing ideas. Hit me up for more brilliance. Thank you, Natureside. You're awesome. It's first story by Julia Granowitz at marijuanatimes.org. Congress passed medical marijuana protections, and Trump says he can ignore them. Wow, thank you. This is 2014. It's very nice. Medical marijuana laws in the United States have been protected from federal government interference by very little. The only thing standing in the way is a spending bill that is renewed annually, in which Congress has continuously included a provision that prevents the DOJ from prosecuting medical marijuana businesses and patients operating within state laws. Earlier this year, a version of the spending bill included a provision that included both medical and recreational markets, but it was revised before being finalized, once again only covering state legal medical marijuana. Now, not for the first time, President Trump signed the spending bill, but he also included a signing statement saying that he has the right to ignore that provision, something he has done, as Julia mentioned before. Quote, Division B, Section 531 of the Act provides that the Department of Justice may not use any funds made available under this Act to prevent implementation of medical marijuana laws by various states and territories. Trump wrote in a signing statement, my administration will treat this provision consistent with the President's constitutional responsibility to faithfully execute the laws of the United States. The reason this is a big deal, he's done it before and nothing came of it, which is a good thing, so hopefully nothing will come of it now. But it's unnecessary. You know, there's a million things in these spending bills, and to single out that one provision and say, hey, I see you, and I have my eye on you, and I will do what I need to do to protect the law, it's weird. Again, nothing that passes come of it, but that don't mean nothing will now. It's disconcerting in its unnecessariness. There you go. It's disconcerting in its unnecessariness. Thank you. Write that down. Really want to wow them. Your next political discussion, get that phrase. We talked a lot about these provisions yesterday, and we mentioned that Trump has said that he had another one of these signing statements that points out that he doesn't have to go by this. Why? I don't know. But I've learned one thing about Trump. Well, I've learned many things about Trump. We all have. But one thing I've learned is you don't want to really delve in too much to like why. I think a lot of it just has to do with his mood at the time. He's like, hey, what's this? Get my signing statement pen. And he dictates something to somebody. Or he may not even wrote it. It may have been someone in his staff. I have no idea. I don't know what's going on there. I know there's a lot of chefs in the kitchen, if you will, when it comes to stuff like that. This next story, ProvidenceJournal.com. Raimondo on projected shortfall. We need some money. It's good to see. At least she has a grasp of the situation. Hey, we don't have enough money. We need more. There you go. Education remains her top priority, but that takes money. You cannot balance a budget that is $200 million in the hole without doing some difficult things you would not like to do, the governor said in a recent interview. We've really squeezed Medicaid. It's still a third of our budget. It's getting harder and harder to cut, so you have to find some revenue. And the honest answer is I don't know where I'm going to find it. Wow. It's back to the original point. We need more money. So enter marijuana legalization. Governor Gina Raimondo tells a story of how a group of high school students in Central Falls schooled her on their drug of choice. The setting, a roundtable discussion with students in one of Rhode Island's poorest cities, a week after she had signed an executive order temporarily banning the sale of flavored vaping products. And the kid said vaping is expensive. We use that as a treat for party nights. Marijuana is the day-to-day thing. Like, wow, Raimondo remembered thinking and maybe saying. I hope she didn't say it. It's embarrassing. Like, wow. No, I think a governor can expand the vocabulary a little bit. She said, how do you obtain that? And they're like, Attleboro is 10 minutes away if you haven't noticed. I'm not sure what that means. So we are kidding ourselves. We think we don't already have recreational marijuana in Rhode Island. Talk to the state police. They see it on the roads. And that's true. I guess Attleboro is a place where people can get weed. I don't know. I know in my experience that you can get marijuana pretty much anywhere. And she said we are kidding ourselves that we think we don't already have recreational marijuana in Rhode Island. That's an understatement. Are there people who think that? Are there people who think that marijuana can't be obtained because it's illegal? I find it hard to believe. I mean, I understand the premise. I understand what people thought 80 years ago. But are there really people today who think that prohibition has stopped the availability of marijuana and that you can't get marijuana in pretty much any town or city or county or even most households in the United States? I don't know. I mean, sometimes the naivety, people being so naive that they think these things it's surprising to me, but I guess it shouldn't be. I don't know. I mean, I guess I don't know 330 million people. We're all varied in our knowledge and our lack of knowledge in different areas. You know, there's things I don't know. I hear about some new music person that has 58 million subscribers on YouTube. I've never heard of them before, but apparently they're very popular. And I'm just, hearing about them 3 years later. That kind of stuff happens. Do people think that you can't buy marijuana everywhere? I find it hard to believe. I'm sorry. I don't think that's a real thing. So anyway, she's backing marijuana legalization, not because just of the millions of dollars in new revenue it could provide the state, at least $9.4 million a year, the state estimates, but because she sees unregulated access to the drug as a safety issue. It's not her top legislative priority, but it will be included in her efforts next year. So keep an eye on Rhode Island when it comes to legalization of marijuana. Other officials in the state, other politicians have said, "Nah, not so fast. We don't think that's going to happen." So it remains to be seen. It's a long road, as you know. Because you know that if you watch this show, I say the phrase long road a lot. Last story. From KDVR.com. Marijuana is not harmless. A new campaign launched in Weld County, Colorado. The Weld County Health Department has launched a new campaign titled Marijuana is Not Harmless. Marky Wallace, MD, MPH, Executive Director of the Weld County Health Department, said, "We acknowledge Colorado voters legalize recreational marijuana. However, the general public, and especially youth, need to understand that marijuana use is not harmless. There are consequences of driving impaired and using frequent amounts of marijuana." Before I get into this, I'll say what I always say. I'm not advocating for people to drive stoned. It may come across that way for the uninitiated. I don't know. I'm not saying if you're really high or you feel too high to drive or you smoked a big fat blunt, that you should run out and get in the car. You shouldn't. Unless you got somewhere really, really important to go and can figure out a way to get there, just sit and relax. Just calm down. It's one of my pet peeves about marijuana users that I'm around is they want to get up and go and just be gone, man. Just sit and relax for a minute. Now, if you're a person who sits and relaxes all the time and then you want to get out and do something, that's different. But if you're always like me, I'm always doing something. Sometimes I just want to sit down and not do something. And your constant insistence that you want to get up and go somewhere is aggravating me. It is a B to the K, a buzzkill. Anyway, the reason I talk about this story, besides the newsworthiness of it, is, as I said earlier, to illuminate something. You've heard of the Rocky Mountain high intensity drug trafficking area. They got the same thing in Colorado and Washington. It's these reports that come out and purport to tell us how marijuana legalization is affecting the geographical areas and the people in those areas where it was legalized. And they give us a series of numbers. And they're very scary sounding numbers. And it's designed to scare people to not driving high or stoned. Whatever. I mean, I guess Again, I'm not advocating for that, and if you don't do that, that's probably a good thing. But here's the problem. There's a problem with the numbers. They're very disingenuous what they do. Let's get into it. According to the annual report, the Rocky Mountain High Intensity Drug Trafficking Area, the yearly number of emergency department visits related to marijuana have increased 54% since 2013. Right there, that's a red flag. They use the percentage and not the number. If there were 28,000 emergency room visits last year, or in the last couple of years in Colorado, that's the number they would use. If it was a big number, that's the number you would see. In the last 5 years, 28,000 people have gone to the emergency room because of marijuana. But they don't. They say 54%. That tells you it's a very small number. Let's say it's 100 and went to 154. That's an increase of 54%, but they're not going to say there's been 154 people that have gone to the emergency room. And I'm not saying that's the number because I don't know the number, because they don't provide the number. That's my point. You have to guess, but you can guess that it's very low. Otherwise, they would use the number. The yearly number of hospitalizations has increased 101%. Again, the same thing. The number is so small compared to the millions of people in Colorado and the hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people who use marijuana in Colorado on a regular basis. The number is so small that they can't use it. But if it's an increase of 101%, they can use that number. Continuing. Traffic deaths involving drivers, because I want to get into the marijuana-related thing, just in brief. I know I've gone into it in depth before, but we'll briefly cover it again. Traffic deaths involving drivers who tested positive for marijuana has more than doubled since legalization, resulting in one marijuana-related traffic death every 3 days. You see it right there on that billboard they have up in Weld County. That is bogus. That is a bogus number. Again, I'm not telling you should drive high, but that is not a real number. That is made up. Marijuana-related. In other words, someone in that accident had marijuana in their system. Whether it was 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago. I use the example all the time. You smoke a bunch of blunts, you get high with your friends on Saturday night. You go to work on Monday morning, and you get into a traffic accident. Is that a marijuana-related accident? No. Is marijuana in your system? Oh, I bet it is. But that goes into the statistic that we're now a Coloradoan is killed every 3 days in a marijuana-related traffic crash. No, they're not. No, they are not. That is a false, bogus, made-up number. Now, you want to say a Colorado driver is killed, or someone is killed every 3 days in a traffic accident in which someone involved in that traffic accident had marijuana in their system. I know it doesn't roll off the tongue and it's going to be hard to put on a billboard, but that's the truth. They could have smoked 2 weeks ago. They find THC in their system. Bam. It's in that stat. A marijuana-related traffic accident. It's disingenuous at best. And purposely misleading at worst. Continuing. Adult marijuana use in Colorado is 96% higher than the national average. It sounds like a lot, right? But they don't tell you that adult marijuana use in Colorado has always been much higher than the national average. Colorado, for many years, long before recreational legalization was enacted, was among the top states when it comes to marijuana use. So there, they avoid any kind of rise that may have happened in Colorado because that number is minuscule. They have to go for the big number. And the big number in this case is that marijuana use in Colorado is 96% higher than the national average, which means nothing. More people in Colorado smoke weed. Okay. They always have. They always will. California, you say the same thing. There's certain states, people like weed, more so than other states. This is a cultural, recreational thing. The past month usage for Colorado youth aged 12 and older is 78% higher than the national average. Same thing. They don't cite an increase because there's not one. But they can say what it is compared to the national average, which has always been higher than the national average. The state of Colorado has always been among the top states when it comes to marijuana use. For whatever reason. It doesn't matter what the reason is. No one cares. But see, whenever you see stories like that, and you'll see those numbers, you know what they're saying. You know what the numbers they're avoiding, and the spin they're trying to put on it. Again, I'm not advocating for stone driving, but these numbers are ridiculous. They're ridiculous, and they're not going to keep people from driving stoned. Because the people who do drive stoned, they can see through these stats, and the people who don't, the people who believe these stats and say, oh, that's a real problem, they're not smoking marijuana and driving anyway. They're not using marijuana, period. For the most part. I need to get in these are generalizations, but I bet I'm right. I bet good money I'm right. But unless, that sort of gambling is illegal, then I do not bet my good money that I'm right. I bet nothing. Thanks, everybody, for checking out the show. Here 5 days a week. Cannabis News brought to you by the Marijuana Times. Search us on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe. Closing in on 3,000 subscribers there. We're also on Apple Podcasts. Thank you to Natureside, nature-side.com, and their organic, all-natural pesticides. Thanks to all of you for watching and listening. It's the end of another week. Go enjoy your weekend, and we'll see you next week right here on Cannabis News.